Welcome to this short video that provides a brief summary of our review that was conducted by 7 concerned citizens regarding Torbay Council and their partners' plan and framework called A Greener Way for Our Bay. The review was conducted in January 2024 on request and subsequent to a meeting with a senior Torbay officer. Whilst recognising the effort and goodwill that has clearly gone into the proposals, our conclusion is that the proposed framework and plans are fundamentally flawed and strategically unsound. This view is supported by 7 key concerns described in our report and briefly introduced within this video. This is the list of our 7 key concerns regarding the proposed framework and plan. Our foundational concerns are about advisory bias and gaps. Within our report, we highlight 5 themes relating to this issue. One theme is about how the proposals include only one single advisory perspective as sole justification underpinning the proposals. That is the view of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, which has been heavily criticised for over 2 decades. There are other perspectives which contrast with the IPCC position that there is a climate emergency driven by man-made CO2 pollution that, left unchecked, will result in runaway global warming. In contrast, there are other bodies, organisations and independent experts refuting these claims. One such organisation is Clintel, with over 1,800 signatures, including Nobel Peace Prize winners in science, that strongly refute this position. Another body is the CO2 Coalition that claims CO2 plans are dangerous and unsupported by science and the scientific method. Net zero initiatives of governments and private organisations are scientifically invalid and will lead to worldwide impoverishment and starvation. These alternative views have not been included or even mentioned in the justification for the proposals, and upon this basis alone we consider the proposals to be fundamentally flawed and strategically unsound. Here are some leading expert views that contrast with the IPCC narrative. We would question: why have such informed views been excluded, omitted and not even mentioned in the Greener Way proposals and plans? Have the warnings and views made by these independent experts been considered with adequate care, openness and due diligence? Nobody denies climate change. It always has. However, perhaps the existential crisis that demands rapid decarbonation is not really imminent or severe as many claim. This really needs to be included into the strategic planning process. And perhaps as a society, we need to be paying close attention. Another theme of concern regarding advisory gaps and bias is about identifying and checking how we see or conceive of a problem and the solution. Advisors, facilitators and auditors need to be aware, vigilant and paying attention to the issues surrounding groupthink and tunnel vision. As left unchecked, these present severe risks and threats to the rigour of strategy making and complex problem solving. In our view, the proposals indicate a dominance of green tunnel vision permeated by net zero problem and solution sets. Consequently, the Greener Way proposals at best serve to inform one potential scenario. in a necessary, more rigorous and expanded strategic planning exercise. In September 23, this was communicated to Torbay Council Chief Executive and Head Auditor through a formal notice to rectify organisation gaps and defects concerning emergency planning related to climate change and net zero. In this notice, 7 concerned citizens suggested appointing independent and impartial inclusion advisor and facilitator, to commission a team of expert advisors holding opposing positions, to construct a full and thorough scenario planning exercise, and to commission thorough risk, value, impact and option assessments. These steps are a necessary precursor to any public strategy consultation. This constitutes a critical missed step in the strategy making and formulation. Concern number 2 is about the practice of greenwashing. So greenwashing is a form of marketing or advertising spin deceptively used to persuade or influence the public that an organisation's aims, values and policies are environmentally, ethically, inclusive and friendly. The proclaimed themes are healthy aspirations for most people. However, discernment is required to see through the values, affirmations and spin. In this case, the greenwashing obscures or hides the adverse implications, risks and issues surrounding the net zero policies and gaps in advisory. Critically, these are not accounted for or considered in the plan's strategy making and policy justifications. This is misleading and a significant omission, oversight. At best, this practice may be well intentioned, however manipulative, and at worst dishonest, because critical issues are obscured or omitted by a veneer of good living aspirational values. For those aware of the issues and omissions, greenwashing may be perceived with suspicion of propaganda, manipulation and hidden agendas. For those with an informed perspective and can discern through the veneer, this undermines trust. And it may be appropriate for advisors and auditors to increasingly pay close attention to these sorts of psychologically manipulative approaches, therefore bringing more transparency and assurance to the public. Much of the adverse implications from net zero have been skimmed over. For example, consider the impact to farming from the consumption of meat reducing by 50% by 2030, that's 6 years, and all consumption of meat stopping by 2050. The impact to traditional farming, people's livelihood, upheaval of local supply chains is colossal. The proposals don't offer any impact assessments on society and the people. The issues, risks, technical and logistical realities are obscured. And this leads us to concern number 4, the thin end of the wedge. If you say something is at the thin end of the wedge, you mean that it appears to be unimportant at the moment, but that it is the beginning of a bigger, more serious development that is likely to lead to considerable harm and hardship. A greener way for our bay appear to be the thin end of a wedge, and it would be wise to exercise caution and vigilance. Net zero, institutional over-exaggeration of climate alarm, runaway global warming, and the approaches of the IPCC has split the scientific community. Left unchecked, it poses an imminent threat of splitting society, creating unnecessary poverty and hardship. For public servants, There is a responsibility first and foremost to cause no harm, to act objectively using the best evidence without discrimination, bias or predetermination, solely for the public interest and the needs of the people of Torbay. There is a duty of care on public authorities and their officers to consider and think about how their processes, policies, organisation system and decisions affect the people and the well-being of the region. Weak and inappropriate strategic process poses serious and significant threats of harm. People who understand the issues can see where these plans are potentially leading society and the people. In September 23, 7 concerned citizens issued a formal notice letter to Torbay Council that their organisation and management system was not fit for emergency planning. This was supported by a 56-page report, informed by a series of Freedom of Information requests. The report, correspondence and explanation videos can be found on our website. These address concerns 5, 6 and 7. With note, a response from Clintel specifically about the regional adaptation strategy for Devon and Cornwall is included. Furthermore, we suggested that it would be appropriate to adopt scenario planning practices. In this context, greener way for our bay proposals inform only one scenario as shown. If this is not subjected to a wider and more rigorous strategic planning process, on its own these proposals pose a significant threat of harm, which is obscured by the practice of greenwashing and weak strategic process. So in summary, to avert a major strategic planning catastrophe, 7 concerned citizens formally issued a notice letter to Torbay Council back in September 23. We suggested that rigorous strategic process, which included scenario planning and advisors holding opposing views, be adopted. In our view, standing on its own, the Greener Way for Our Bay framework and plans are fundamentally flawed and strategically unsound because it is not founded upon appropriate strategic rigour and sound process. At best, the proposals inform one scenario of a wider and more rigorous strategic planning exercise. We would encourage the public to seek assurance from Torbay Council, its partners and auditors that the catastrophic threats posed by this plan, if unleashed on the region and its people, are properly investigated, checked and mitigated. We trust that you have found this video and report useful and insightful. For more detail, please see the report which can be found on our website. Thank you for staying with us throughout this video.